We are taught a great deal about life in the teachings of Jesus. My name's David Woodall with the United Church of Canada and the Emsdale Pastoral Charge. We are taught a great deal about life in the teachings of Jesus, about how to live, about what makes life truly rich and rewarding. We live in the year 2021, and as I think about that, I hear in the parable of the Good Samaritan the story of a traveler attacked by thieves, beaten, and left on the side of the road, then promptly ignored by passers-by. I hear in this story an allegory about the kind of people Jesus envisioned that we could be. Fred Buchner has some thoughts in this regard as well. The robbers in the story jumped on the man who was passing by and tore off his clothes and mugged him and left him half dead by the side of the road. After a while, a couple of other men came by who were not half dead, but only half alive. Perhaps they were only half alive or half dead already because when they looked at the man lying in the ditch, what they saw, this priest and this Levite, was just a man lying in a ditch, half dead. And that's apparently all they saw. When they looked, they saw the man, but they also saw the road. And in their mind's eye, they saw whatever goal they were traveling on that road to reach. Now, presumably, they recognized two needs. They recognized the need of the wounded man for help. And they recognized their own need to get to wherever they were going. So let's give them the benefit of the doubt by assuming that it was genuinely important for them to get where they were going, and that they felt sure that somebody else would happen along soon who could help better than they could. And in fact, that was the case. These were not especially bad or heartless people, at least no worse or more heartless than anyone listening to this message today. And as the world goes, that's really not so bad after all. They were just blind men, about as blind as people are usually blind. When they looked at the man in the ditch, all they saw was what people normally expect to see when they look at another person. They saw another person who had problems just as they had their own problems, and in a sense they were right. I have my problems, you have your problems. I have my needs and you have your needs. And in a sense, your problems and needs really are distinct from my problems and needs. Often as I live my life and spend my time, use my talents, I have to try to decide whose needs I'm going to serve, yours or mine. And we understand this, and the answer, of course, changes from circumstance to circumstance and from person to person. But I wonder if that is just a surface glance. Sometimes what we see is not all there is to be seen. It's like looking at the sand we scoop up and seeing only the sand and not the infinite beauty of each grain. Or like gazing up through the window and saying, well, that's the sky, which really is an inadequate way of describing the endless blue of the atmosphere that is layers and layers above us. Reality is often more than just a surface look. As we travel around this world, in this life, every person that we meet is the one in the ditch, because every person that we meet, no matter how little he or she looks it, and no matter how surprised they might be to realize it, every person we meet is half dying in their need for us to reach out to them. Not just the next person who comes along, but they need us, you and I. In one way or another, every human being is crying out or acting out or at great cost stifling their need to be known and accepted and forgiven and healed by you and I, not by somebody else, by you and I of all people. So that other person who looks so distinct from you and I is not quite so distinct after all, because they cannot really even be a person without you and I. To be really alive, not just half alive. They need our help. They need our healing. They need our recognition. And there's another, even deeper truth. To be really alive, not just half alive, we need to help and heal them. Their need for mercy is matched by our need to be merciful. And it's not just for their sake that we come to their rescue. It's also for our sakes. Neither of us can be really human, really alive without the other person. And every time we pass by and leave them to their own misery, we both suffer for it. We need each other so infinitely more than we are usually able to see or to admit or to understand. In Jesus' story, a third man finally did come along, of course. He really looked, and saw not just a man, but what was actually sprawled out there in the dust, with most of the life smacked out of him. He bound up his wounds, set him on his own beast, took care of him, and his reward was to go down in history as the Good Samaritan, which is a marvelously inept title. Just as the priest and the Levite are less than really bad, more just half blind, in the same way, the Samaritan is more than merely good. The difference between the Samaritan and the other two was not just that he was more morally sensitive than they were, but that he had, as they had not, the eyes to see a life. Perhaps it was the eye of a poet, or the eye of a child, or the eye of a saint. It was an eye that was able to look at the man in the ditch and see in all its extraordinary unexpectedness the truth itself. At the deepest level of being human, the one on the road and the one in the ditch needed each other to be fully human. They were not just two separate, unconnected lives. Your life and my life flows into each other as one wave flows into the next wave on the endless coast of life. And unless there's peace and joy and freedom for you, there can be no real peace or joy or freedom for me. Unless we live for each other and in and through each other, we do not really live very satisfactorily. There can really be life only when there really is love. Thousands of people are migrating today, moving around this world in the next few years. We need them as much as they need us. You will go home today with those you love. They need you as much as you need them. You will meet this day and in the days to come strangers that you don't even know the names of. Some who will be lying broken and torn in the ditches of life. You need them as much as they need you. As surely as a sailing ship is made to sail with the wind, so are you and I and everybody else in this wide world made to live bound to each other. As a sister is bound to a brother, a parent bound to a child, giving and receiving love and mercy, binding up each other's wounds, taking care of each other. We are taught a great deal about life in the teachings of Jesus, about how to live, about what makes life truly rich and rewarding. In the parable of the Good Samaritan, we catch a vision of the people Jesus knew us to be. So today, let's be those people.